We are back working on the engine for the 70 Dodge Charger RT. And what I've decided to do isn't build the 426 Hemi that's in the kit. It's not a bad engine, but I wanted something much more detailed. And besides, the kit comes with a Dana 60 rear end, which would be perfect for the Hemi, but I wanted to go with a 440. Well, unfortunately, that axle would not work for a standard 440, which I actually have here from the 1968 Charger kit. But the heavier duty Dana axle did come with the 440 6-pack. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to model a 440 6-pack. The only problem is I don't have a good 6-pack manifold. So I've got to modify this one here. I found a manifold that would work as a good 6-pack manifold. It was actually one from, I believe, a monogram kit. It was a little bit, seemed like a little bit out of scale. The engine was definitely, the 440 was definitely terrible. But the manifold, if I worked it a little bit, I found that it would fit this particular engine. And I think it turned out pretty good after reworking it just a little bit. I have a friend who has the Ross Gibson 440 6-pack engine. So I was able to take a really good look at that Ross Gibson engine and kind of see how this manifold needed to go. And also, I needed to source some carburetors. Well, it turns out that these carburetors that came with this particular manifold or that particular kit, they look really good for very similar to what comes with the Ross Gibson. And since I'm going to put an air cleaner on it anyway, I don't need to bore out any of the bodies on the throttle. So here we are so far with where we're at. I really wanted to put a 727 transmission on this, do the automatic, but unfortunately I just don't have a spare. It would take me some time to get one, and well, I'm very impatient, so I'm going to go ahead and do it as a 4-speed car. The 440 6-pack actually outperformed the Hemi that year on the track, according to official numbers and official statistics. And the automatic was actually slightly quicker than the 4-speed, but it's okay. We're going to go ahead and use this 4-speed. So I'll stick around and see how we do. So looking pretty good. I like the carbs on it. Of course, we'll have an air cleaner on it here pretty quick. I'm not sure on the exhaust. I might work on some headers and see how those look. And here we are in the doghouse tonight with Rose, and well, she's working on a little project she'd like to tell you about.
Hello. I have this model airplane that's partially built. It's from, wait, where was it again? Where's the year it was made?
It's from Airfix, and it's a British World War II aircraft called a Whirlwind, huh?
Yeah. And this is from like, wait, where? It's from 1977.
Wow, that's a pretty old kit.
Can you show us again?
So let's see, it says right here. Let's see, it says 1977. So yeah, this is an old kit.
Yeah, and that's the year that this model right here was made in. So
we actually got this kit from Rob Humphreys. He's the man who has the largest collection of built model aircraft, according to Guinness. At least he used to. But he also has a huge collection of unbuilt models. And, well, he was selling some. And this is one of the ones we got for Rose.
I like to sometimes use this glue. It smells good. Other times I use my dad's glue, but this smells good, so yeah.
So this is what we do in the doghouse. We build together quite a bit, and I'm still working on. I'm actually working on a set of headers for a 440 engine. So, yep, we do this, and we'll watch Gilligan's Island from time to time. We'll do a few other real fun things. So.
Correction, whenever we watch Gilligan's Island.
Yep, this is one of the big things we do. So, it's one of our absolute favorites. So on to the interior. I sprayed the entire thing down with Mission Models black primer. I really like the kind of a low sheen that I get with it. I used the kit supplied decals for the console and for the dashboard, and I think they turned out pretty darn good. Tried to put some flocking on the floor, some of the testers' carpet flocking, and I think it turned out pretty good. Well, let's catch up to where we are on the Charger. So, before I put the body on, I added some side windows here. I do this to most, well, every one of my Chargers. I do this to most of my cars, because most cars, for whatever reason, car models do not come with these side windows. And imagine that, all the cars had them. So I know that in all of the cars that I owned from the 1960s and 1970s, I never rolled these down. So they should be there. There you go. So I put that in. I just added the last few details, such as the mirror and whatnot, and put the body and the interior together. And then shoehorned the chassis in. Now, the problem with this particular kit has always been, and all of these Charger kits, is getting this part of the chassis here to fit correctly. The back part goes in well. The sides usually go in pretty well, but this is always a difficult area. And then you have to put the radiator support in, and that is always a challenge for me. I don't know why, but regardless, it's now all together. I am going to put a few decals on the engine compartment area, which will dress that up quite nicely. Chassis turned out pretty good. Again, I wanted to have a newer car look, and from the factory they were kind of this gray underside, and there was undercoating in the wheel wells, of course, a black undercoating. So this is how I decided to go. There's green overspray from the body onto the chassis, as there should be from a factory car. Normally I don't put stock tires and wheels on my Chargers, but this 70 I've decided to do pretty much stock from the factory, which is really a departure for me. So so far it's turning out good. Let's continue on. Throw some decals on. The detail that we did on the tail panel here, the rear valence. Here we painted white inside of where the reverse lights would go, and then we used some clear Tester's clear adhesive to put those in. And on the taillights themselves, don't know if you can see in there very well, but we painted silver on the back of the tail ends, and then that kind of helps to lighten this up, make it more visible. And then all around, just on the edge, I painted black. That's how it is on the real tail lights. And then there is a strip of chrome, a real thin strip of chrome that goes all the way around the tail light area. And of course, this area here is blacked out with the Charger RT emblem on it. So it was a lot of work to get this done. You'd think just throwing these few pieces in it would be pretty simple, but good hour and a half worth of work here that is represented in just doing the tail panel. So I am finally calling it done on this Charger. Of course, I've called it a few other names along the way. It's a good kit, it really is, but it was very challenging for me in many ways, and we'll kind of go over a couple of those. But it builds into an absolutely beautiful replica of a 1970 Dodge Charger RT. We used some of Larry's bathwater to accentuate our door panels, and here on the trunk lid, and so they stand out just a little bit more. I added a piece of trim right here that belongs on this quarter window. Again, this doesn't come in the kit, and if you just build it straight from the box, yes, the car looks good, but it just doesn't look correct unless you add this quarter window. And again, these were almost never rolled down. If you had people in the back seat, maybe, but how often was that? Okay, so we've got some the Charger decals laid down very well here on the top, as well as these wonderful RT decals. I'm so glad that they added these to the kit. I also put my signature antenna on the car in the correct place, in the correct style for once. I have a tendency to sometimes do this wrong. Let's look under the hood here. Now, there is something wrong. There is something I did wrong, and I kind of did it on purpose. But it's my model, and it's how I chose to build it. All of this area should be sublime green. The engine compartment really was not black in this area. However, I chose to do mine this way, help the engine stand out a little bit more in the look, and again, I think it turned out pretty darn good. A couple of things I do need to point out. On the grill, kind of hard to see, but the 1970 model year was the last year for the second generation of the Dodge Charger, and it featured a chrome surround bumper, which was really kind of a neat thing. However, this whole piece comes in chrome, so if you want to do it upright, you have to black out the grill, and you have to chrome these little lines right here, which you can see, very difficult for me. It comes with these Charger RT decals, which are a lifesaver. A little bit of Solvaset, and those just snug right down in, and it's great. The other part is the entire area here is not chrome. What I had to do is I had to paint inside of here a silver, because this was a plastic area before the actual chrome bumper. So I tried to simulate that properly and tried to get the right color white for the turn signals. And we put on an Arizona license plate, which is again kind of unusual for me. The red line tires on this thing are fabulous. The wheels are good as well. But you do have to do some work if you want to detail them upright so that they look correct for a Magnum 500. The fun thing about the Dodge Charger in 1970. So as I said, it was the last of the second generation Chargers, and it featured this chrome wraparound surround bumper. It also featured taillights similar to the 69, but with this added little area through here for 1970 on the RT and the 500s. In 1970, you could get the Hemi engine, which was a nice option, but the 440 was pretty much your standard engine on this. However, they offered a new variant of that 440, and that was the 440 6-pack, which was rated at 390 horsepower. With this, coupled with the 4-speed and I want to say it was the 350 gear ratio in the rear end, it actually did a better quarter mile. I want to say it was a 14.5 versus a 14.7 for the Hemi powered car with the same rear end and the same transmission. So actually, according to the specifications that were official, the 446 pack was the fastest of the Dodge Chargers that year, better performing, which is kind of interesting. 70 was also the first year that you could get the high back bucket seats. In 68 and 69, they were a medium bucket seat with a headrest, and in 69 you had these high backs. Also on the standard base Charger, you could get a front bench seat, which was kind of an interesting thing, and someday I would like to build a variant of that as well. So production figures. In 1968, the Dodge Charger sold 90,000 units, actually over 90,000 in 1968, but sales began to decline in 69, And by 1970, they had skidded clear down to 45,500 units were produced that year. And part of that is due to the fact that the Challenger came online that year as well. So that took a good part of the market. But anyway, here is my 1970 Dodge Charger RT with the 440 6-pack. Hope you've enjoyed this.